Hello, warriors. Welcome to the You Movement. I am B, and I posed a question to any of my followers and out there on social media if anybody had any topics that they wanted me to address and make a video about that I haven't already addressed or made a video about. And I've already gotten some interesting comments and some subject matters that I want to do videos on. So this is my first one in response to that. And this video, I want to talk about grief, but not just any grief. I want to get into the nuances of grief in my experience. At this stage, I look at it like I've got a doctorate in grief. On my awakening path, there have been two primary emotions, those being grief and those being fear. And I have developed my own expertise on the topic of grief. And for the most part, people think of grief as somebody dies and then there's a mourning period. And yes, that is true. However, there is a lot more nuance to grief, especially along this awakening path that is triggered as we release a relationship that's not in our highest and greatest good. So in that regard, specifically, I want to talk about what I am calling the pre-grief stage, where you're grieving before the end. And I want to deal with that because on a soul level, we can see the end of something long before something ends. But we go through the 5 stages of grief, just like we would if somebody had died, okay? So this is when we get into what's known as ambiguous grief, okay? So ambiguous grief is not like your standard death situation. It's more convoluted, it's more complex, it's sometimes much more subtle. And just like the 5 stages of Kubler-Ross created the 5 stages of grief, ambiguous grief can follow those too. And now the 5 stages of grief, like anything that has stages, don't necessarily go in order. You can go back and forth and jump around from them as much as you want. So those stages are denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. So you can bounce around those back and forth as much as you can until you get to the final stage, which is acceptance. And then even from acceptance, you can easily bounce back. So let's just talk about this and break this down for a minute, because I knew that my relationship was ending the first year that I got in it, and I was in a 15-year-long relationship. But I saw the signs, the first flags, year 1, okay? So my relationship had started as a long-distance relationship that was a lot of love bombing. And when I got back to Canada and joined with him, there were signs right away. And I'm like, hey, wait a second. What happened to that person that I fell in love with? What's going on here? Something's not matching up. So immediately I was in denial. This new person that I'm seeing now can't really be who you are, because this was the person that I fell in love with. So a total dichotomy between my belief of what that love was and reality of who he actually was, right? So I was in a state of denial for a really long period of time. Long before the relationship came to its demise 15 years later. Next, we hop into some anger. So our first, anger is an emotion that is an action-oriented emotion, which means I need to fix this. I need to make this better. So we're grieving the relationship years before we even see that it's ending, because what we're doing in that anger stage is fighting for it. I'm going to fight for what I believe that it was. Come on, let's go to counseling. Let's work this out. Why can't you do this? So there's like conflict and argument, and you're trying desperately to salvage your belief and hold something together that ultimately is meant to collapse. And then you get into like bargaining. But if you do this for me, then we can do this. Let's find solutions. Let's problem solve. Let's work this out. Let's read this book on codependency and see if that's at play. Or let's read this. Let's get some help from like counselor. Let's problem solve, right? So I'm gonna bargain. If you can do this for me, then I'll settle for that, and I'll negotiate and this and that. And so that initial anger that it wasn't what it was has influenced and moved us into bargaining of like, maybe I can solve this. Maybe somehow I can make this work. And then it gets tiring. It gets really tiring after a while of trying to keep a relationship afloat that is steadily dying. And I made a point in a video recently, when you are bailing, right? You're the one doing all the bailing and trying to like prevent the boat from sinking, the relationship from sinking, and somebody's sitting there drilling holes in it, it gets exhausting. It gets absolutely exhausting. So toxic relationships over time get to a point where you feel absolutely like this is futile, like the futility. And so instead of moving, because it's been a grieving cycle the entire time, instead of moving into, I'm just getting out, it's very common to move into depression. And for me, depression lasted a number of years where it was total despondency, and it was like, I give up. I see the futility of trying to argue. So anger didn't work. Anger didn't make it any better. All that anger did was like exhaust me more and give them more fuel to talk about reactionary abuse, right? So reactionary abuse is when somebody triggers you and creates these scenarios, and then you respond, and it blows up in your face because you look like the crazy one. And there were many situations that I can look back now and go, oh my God, like that was total reactionary abuse. I can remember one scenario just to kind of like play it out. We were at a New Year's Eve party, so alcohol was involved, and that I learned very quickly was not safe to do in my relationship. It was not safe for me to consume alcohol with my partner. So my drinking started to like steadily decline because anytime I drank with him, he would create chaos. So we were at a party, and it was very obvious that he was making eyes at one of my friends, and it was obvious to me. He was making sure it was obvious to me, but it wasn't obvious to anyone else in the room. Like he was like eyeing her up and down, and I was like, what the fuck are you doing? What? Like I couldn't believe it. And at this point, I'd already had a good few drinks in me, so I got very upset. Because that's not how I roll. Integrity, honorability, honesty are all, and fidelity is hugely important to me. And so he's being all like smarmy right in front of my face. And so I end up crying and going into making a scene. And the distraction away from the New Year's party turned into, I'm the problem because I'm making a scene and I'm crying, and he feigns innocence. So he's like, I don't know why she's reacting. I didn't do anything, which then riled the other men in the room. And one of the other men came to his defense of like, why are you messing with my buddy? And he started calling me the C word. And it turned into a shit show. So it did. And all the while, like, I knew what I saw. He knew what he did. And part of his confession was to admit that reactionary abuse was one of the ways to poke. So again, it's like poking, and you're like in this anger state, which is part of the grief, because you're already experiencing the relationship that you believe that you have in your head is crumbling all around you. And you're being pushed into anger and into denial. This can't be happening. You know, why would the person who loves me behave like this? Why would he do that? And then bargaining of like, come on, like, can we not work this out? What's happening? Because reality is just like muddled mess. And then over time, what happens with enough of these situations that happen where you're in constant chaos and you're constantly grieving, and you're constantly, you don't know you're grieving because it's this pre-grieve state. You just become like this. You just become resigned, and you're like, there's no point. There's 0 point, addressing this last thing that he did, because nothing is going to change. There's 0 point going to counseling anymore. There's 0 point in making any effort. And so what do? You resign yourself to go and fall down in your bed and collapse and, eat donuts and watch TV. Distract yourself on your phone, because you're just like, this sucks. This just sucks so bad, and this is my life, and I guess it's not going to get any better, and and so then that's the depressed stage of the grieving. And then something happens that moves you out of the depression. Eventually that exhaustion is like a good sign. It's because it's the tipping point that gets you from the like, I can't do this anymore. Like, I'm just done. Eventually the energy level gets so down and so depleted that it's like complete surrender. Like, I give up. And so for me, that point came in 2019 when Soul said, save myself. Like, I could see that there was no way I could survive this. Of course, it took me another 2.5 years. 2021 is December is when I finally asked for a divorce. So it took me 3 more years to save myself and to get out. And then it took me another 6-8 months to get him out of the house. And then it took me another 6-8 months to secure a divorce, or even more. I think it was actually another year. It was it took me another full 12 months, 14 months to get a divorce. So it took from 2019 all the way to 2024 to secure my divorce. So that's a really long time. It really took a really long time to actually escape from it. So there was the pre-escape, the grieving cycle that happened and occurred before I even got to the point of saying I'm done. And in my relationship, there were many times that I was like, I'm done. This needs to end. And there's nothing left. But the problem is, with these individuals is that it's exactly when they rope you back into the cycle, through love bombing and hoovering. All of a sudden, they're treating you as you always wanted, or the way that you were remembered from the very beginning, because that was all love bombing too, and was all full of bullshit. So then the grief cycle actually begins again from the start, and you are back to denial. See, this has hope. Maybe this could work out, and then you're get another situation happens, another reactionary abuse situation happens, and then you're no, this can't be happening again. Why is this happening again? No, I want it to be the way that it should be. So really, before you come to the point where you're I am done, you've probably been there many times before. So grieving is a cycle that starts with a toxic person. It starts years in advance. It actually starts from day one. You're actually grieving before you're even enjoying your relationship, because your belief of what the relationship isn't what the relationship is. It never was, it was always performance art, or it was always toxic, and it wasn't what you thought it was. The potential that you saw in them wasn't who they actually were, or it was all a lie. And so on a soul level, your soul's been grieving. You've been grieving the loss of the relationship since day one, since far before the relationship actually ends. And then when you get into the ending of the relationship, there is another grief cycle that begins post leaving, because you go through another whole phase of, I wish it was what I wanted it to be in the beginning, but it never was. And so you have to go through this other completely confusing, not what was it? If it wasn't what I thought it was, then what actually was it? So this is when you start to pick apart and distinguish reality. You start to see reality. So the pre-awakening or pre-grief is all about the disintegration of the lie, and the post-relationship is all about the acceptance and the seeing of the truth. Okay, so it's kind of like two phases. One is the lie disintegrates, and the other one is truth begins to materialize. And processing through the truth, the grief that comes with truth is horrible. It's very, very horrible. It is not as obvious as I loved a person and then they died and now they're gone. It's the reality that I loved a person who never existed. Okay, that was a performance. And now that belief of who they were is gone. And that takes a lot of time to integrate reality. Reality takes a very long time to integrate. And it's a very painful process, because if you've been on this cycle for an extended period of time, grief has a component that's intermixed with your own brain chemistry that keeps you in that cognitive dissonance, that confusion state for a long period of time. So you're on the one side, you're this isn't working, and so you're already grieving. But on the other side, you're I can fix it, I can make it better, I can save the day, it's all going to be okay. So you're having two chemical responses, which is one, you have a lot of cortisol, and then two, you're getting these dopamine hits. And so this is keeping the grief cycle spinning until you get out of it. And then those two chemicals need to begin to regulate. And in that regulation of calming the nervous system and regulating the cortisol, it was horrible. It was absolutely horrible. I equate it to withdrawing off of heroin. Not that I've ever withdrawn off of heroin, but there was physical, oh my God, I'm going to die. I have to call this person. How am I going to survive without them? Because the amount of mental fuckery that went on in the denial phase and in the bargaining phase and in the anger phase was so much bad programming that it kept alive. It kept alive this process. And so you shift into the post-relationship grieving cycle of wishing that it was something that it wasn't, and accepting what it actually was. So the first acceptance is accepting it's over. It's never going to get better. They aren't going to change. No matter how many years you've put into it, they are what they are, and there's nothing more you can do about it. You cannot save them. And then you get the message, no, but I can save myself. And then you move into, now I've got to process through this pain, this anguish, all the years that I put into it, the dreams that never manifested, and the acceptance that You know, maybe this was a big soul's learning for me. Maybe it was a karmic situation. And so it takes a lot of time. So the escaping of a toxic relationship, whether it be with a narcissistic individual or just a toxic, more trauma bonded situation, takes years. Okay, it takes years. And so I want to talk about that a little bit because in society, we've got this nonsensical notion that certain grief should be, has certain time frames. Okay, and you know, oh, it's your father that grieved. Okay, that you lost your father or mother or child. Oh, take your time. That's going to take months. You know, that's going to take a good long time. Oh, it was your husband. Yeah, that'll take a certain amount of time, or your wife, or your, you know, oh, it was a friend. That should take less time. And oh, it was a pet. Get over it. You know, like, so we get these notions that like, okay, father will give you 8 months. Get over that then. Wife, sibling, you know, 6 months, you should be fine. Pet, 2 weeks, you should be fine. You know, and so timelines, throw all of those up and throw them out because that's nonsensical. It's going to take you as long as it's going to take you. I've heard and I've read examples that some people say that for every year that you were married, it's going to take 0.5 amount of years to get over it. So, and now I don't necessarily agree with that but it could, maybe it could. So if you were married for 14 years, it might take you 7 years to like fully process through and get over it. If you were together for 20, it may take 10 years. I think that's, you know, that might be. Other people, they might process through it in a shorter amount of time, probably because they've been processing through it, you know, already in that pre-grief stage. So my number one thing that I want to talk about is take as much time as you bloody well need. If people are telling you to get over it, to move on, that maybe there's something wrong with you because you're depressed about it, tell them to shut up. Tell them to shut up and say, you know what? I'm going through a lot and it's going to take me as long as it's going to take me, and back off. Back in the day, you know, people were allowed to like, I know, it was funny because I went to Portugal years ago with my son when he was little, and it's very uncommon for a woman to travel without a man. And people used to stare at me a little bit weird. And I was like, why is everybody staring at me? And they're like, oh, because you're not in black. You should be shrouded in black because they must assume you must be a widow, right? So there was a time that like we allowed for people to like wear black and I'm grieving, I'm this and that. And that's kind of been thrown out by society, which is a little bit sad. I think that people maybe should be allowed to just like, I'm grieving, leave me alone. Or like even like wear a veil again might be a good idea, which kind of says to humans like, fuck off. I'm out of commission, don't talk to me. You can make as many boundaries. You can give yourself isolation. You can do what you need to do to take the time that you need to process through the emotions. And the emotions are going to fluctuate. You will go through many cycles of being angry that they weren't the person that they promised themselves to be, that they pretended to be. Of course, you're going to be angry. You know, like, I can remember there were many nights that I was like, I put on Rage Against the Machine and like, dancing it out, you know, like, fuck you, you know, why would you have to do that to me? That was such an evil thing to do. And then there was like times I was like totally anguished, like, why? The sorrow, the anguish, the pain. There is no way through grief or around grief than through it. You need to give yourself the time to process through it. You have to actually feel it. And it's not a pleasant emotion at all. There is nothing, like 4 years I've been grieving, and I haven't just been grieving the end of one relationship. It's been compounded Okay, so on this awakening journey, you get compounded grief on top of it, because I was grieving the loss of my best friend, grieving the loss of my mother, grieving the loss of my family, grieving the loss of my marriage, grieving the loss of my twin flame, grieving the loss of like so many losses that I was like, like absolutely compounded grief. And the only way through is to sit in it, is to experience each and every single one of those emotions and give myself the space and the compassion and honor what I was experiencing. Because if I didn't honor it, and I do what a lot of people do, which is to try to circumvent it, like I'm going to take this pharmaceutical to like numb the pain, or I'm going to like drink myself into oblivion to like zone on out, or I'm going to pretend happy thoughts and just get over it. I should just be getting over it now. Like, it's been 6 months, And even myself, I heard myself with the programming of society that like, I should be over it by now. I should have moved on by now. I shouldn't still be. And the more I heard myself saying those types of things, I was like, man, that programming runs deep, that says, grief is something you need to like hurry yourself through. There's a wonderful story about Buddha. And in this particular story, a woman loses her child. And this is, to death. She lost her child to death. And she goes to Buddha and she's like, please, you need to help me. You need to help me, because I'm like overwhelmed and distraught. So what can you do to help me? And Buddha said, I'll be more than willing to help you. You just need to go to one house in the village and find a mustard seed. Ask for a mustard seed from any house in the village that has never experienced death. And so she went off on her mission thinking, this is going to like save the day, and I won't have to feel this grief anymore, and I can get over it, and I can move on. And she knocks on the first house and she's like, can I please have a mustard seed from this house if it's no death? And they're like, oh, I'm really sorry. We've experienced death here. And she's like, oh. So she'd go to the next house. She's like, have you experienced death here? Yeah, sorry. Oh, damn. She'd go to the next house. And eventually she got the point, which is there is no house anywhere that hasn't experienced grief. And you too will get the message that there is no person on the planet that has not or will not experience grief. And then when you get to that level of acceptance that this is something that I have to experience, this loss and this processing through this pain and this suffering that I am going through is part of the human experience, that I was sent down on this planet in this life to actually experience, then you are a lot more willing to give yourself the time, the patience, the compassion, and the understanding that this is what I'm in right now. I'm in a grieving cycle. And it's okay. It's okay to not be okay. It's okay to be depressed when you lose a relationship that was important to you. It's okay to experience sorrow. It's okay to be angry. It's okay to have anxiety and feel a pull to go back to them. It's okay to be of two minds, of like, I wish it was something other than it was. I accept what it was. It's okay. All of those things are okay, because this is the human experience. The human experience requires us to experience pain and suffering. Why? Why would God put me through this? Why would I have to experience this horrific trauma bond and these losses? Because I had to learn compassion. I also had to learn that I am not alone in my suffering. And just like that woman had to go from house to house to house to try to find a house with no suffering so she could obtain a mustard seed, she was unable to do that. And so when we go through, there's been so many times on my awakening that I was so self-centered and thought to myself, I'm the only one on the planet that could feel this bad. Nobody could possibly feel the anguish that I'm experiencing right now. Like, nobody. I'm so alone in my suffering. And then, soon, well, not necessarily soon. It's been a process, but over time, the awareness that comes is like, wait a second here. I'm not alone in my suffering. There are countless of us, especially in this awakening path, that have lost family, lost friends, lost children, lost partners, that no longer resonate, or there's toxicity, or you're pulled apart and you're put into isolation. So then you're like, oh my God, there's others like me suffering. And then something happens, which is this heart expansion begins to take place. And when the heart expansion begins to take place, we can start to feel compassion for ourselves, and we can start to feel greater compassion for others. So the more we practice, and it is a practice, it's a spiritual practice, which is why we suffer. It's so we learn to do the spiritual practice, which is to sit in the emotion and to feel love and compassion and forgiveness and understanding for ourselves. Oh my God, I'm so sorry that you went through that. Oh my God, I'm so sorry that your heart is aching. Oh my God, I'm so sorry that you're experiencing this. There were countless days where I spent the entire day just holding my heart space and just repeating, I am so sorry. I am so sorry. I am so sorry that you are going through this. I am so sorry that you are feeling like this. I am so sorry that this happened to you. And I was just sending that into my heart space. I am so sorry. And over time, it eases. Does it happen overnight? Oh, hells no. Does it go up and down? And yep. Does it go around and around and around? Yes. But over time, the lows don't go as low, and you slowly pull yourselves up, and you're like, okay, I can handle this. I can get through this. So grief is not something that's going to go away. And while they say time heals all wounds, I think that time softens the wounds. So like scar tissue, over time, the more you move, it becomes a little bit more malleable. And so we are like, okay, I still feel grief. I still feel the loss. I still miss that person in my life, but I can live with it and I can tolerate it. Does it ever completely go away? I don't know. I'll let you know when I get there. I haven't got there. I still feel, even this last full moon, oh my God, the grief that was coming up was like unreal, like the heart-centered pains. And this is it, is the whole heart chakra is going through massive expansions when we allow ourselves to fully grieve. So it's like the heart is breaking open, and the more love we give into ourselves, that love is like penetrating through the cracks and allowing the heart space to expand, so we become a more compassionate and caring and understanding person that can go out in the world and say, listen, I understand your pain because I have experienced pain and I allowed myself to experience that pain, and I loved myself through that pain. So this is heart chakra expansions that come at a cost of breaking. It's like a shell that like breaks apart, and then slowly the heart begins to expand. And that can come with like physical pain, like heartache is a real thing. Okay, especially on this awakening journey, because it's happening at such a rapid rate. The accelerated awakening process that many of us are on is absolutely just heart-wrenching. And it does feel like maybe you're having a heart attack. And listen, if you feel like you're having a heart attack, absolutely go get yourself checked out. And get the tests I did, years back. And then I was like, okay, now that I know what this is a heart expansion. Every time I had it thereafter, I was like, I don't need to go to the doctor. And so some of the tools that I would use was physically thumping. I have my thumping, but like, oh my God, just, helping that, putting cold or putting hot, massaging, putting some rose oil, anything like this, because physically, heartbreak is called heartbreak or heartache for a reason. And yes, you might feel like you're going to die from it, but you won't actually die from it. But that sensation of, oh my God, I'm dying because of this heartache, is actually an aspect of your ego that's collapsing. And on the awakening path, there are so many phases of aspects of self that are dying. And so when we go through like heart chakra expansions and clearings, it might feel like, oh, like I'm like, this is too much. So if you are on the precipice right now of realizing or coming to that place of acceptance, you've gone through years and years and years of denial, of bargaining, of anger, of depression, and now you're like kind of right at that point of acceptance, you're not alone. Okay, you're not alone. There's a lot of people on the awakening path right now that are talking to me that are like, listen, I just asked for a divorce, or I'm trying to find a way out of my relationship, or I've just gotten out of my relationship, and then moving into the next phase of grief, that ambiguous phase of accepting the loss of something that you put a lot of time and energy and effort into. And so it's going to give you, so my first thing is give yourself time. Take as much time as you need. This is your experiencing of grief. So experience it fully. Commit to it. Like, oh, this is my assignment called grief, and I'm going to sit in this for as long as necessary so that I can process through it fully. I'm not going to push it away from me and then it's going to like linger somewhere. No repressing of it, because that's just going to cause trauma in the long run for myself. So I'm going to allow myself to fully grieve this process now. And then, so we're going to give ourselves time, we're give ourselves allowing, and we're going to give ourselves kindness and care and gentleness and nurturance and compassion and love and all of the things that you wish somebody else would say to you in that moment. You're lying in bed and you're like, oh, this is the worst thing ever. Or I wish somebody would come and hug me right now. Okay, then hug yourself. Oh my God, I wish somebody would say that they were sorry. I wish that person would say they were sorry for all the things that they did to me. Then you say that to yourself. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And you keep giving yourself what you wish somebody else would give to you. And that is the process of allowing and processing through it, alchemizing it, transmuting it, transforming it. And it's through that we become enlightened to a new state of being, a new level of consciousness. A level of consciousness that's going to shift humanity out from a repressed state of consciousness, so a lower level of consciousness of trying to control and power, like the solar plexus, I'm going to control this shit. And it's bringing us up into higher heart chakra, Jesus, Mary Magdalene, Mother Mary are often depicted in stained glass as having like the glowing heart. That's what's happening for you as you go through this process of pain. So see yourself as this is my sacred heart coming into being. My sacred heart is glowing once I take this shell off of it, these shields away from it, and I allow myself to thoroughly experience this pain and this suffering so that I can be a loving, kind, caring, compassionate person. The path of enlightenment is through the suffering. And grief is one of the most profound sufferings that's going to raise your consciousness, raise your vibrational frequency in the most painful way possible. So if you are going through a grief cycle, pre-grief, post-grief, with ambiguous forms of grief, and you need somebody to hold space for you and remind you that it's okay to not be okay, I am here for you. Please join the Spiritual Warrior Support Group, and there are other warriors going through it too. You can also join the Spiritual Warrior Support Group Zoom meetings, Wednesdays and Sundays. Send me an email or a DM to get the links for those. And then if you want to book a one-on-one with me, that is always an available option for you again. Do not suffer in silence if it becomes overwhelming and too much. And I understand how painful a process this could be. And if you are at your absolute wit's end, please reach out for some help and support, because it can be a very difficult path to navigate through. I am sending everybody out there all my love, especially if you're going through the breakdown of relationship right now. I am fully aware of how painful a process that is, especially when you're trying to escape from trauma bonded or narcissistic energies. That is next level type of grief and breakdown. It's not simply the relationship broke down, okay? That you know, oh, we didn't gel with each other and we decided we went our separate ways. No. You know, it's not an easy escape, because they're going to try to keep sucking you back in, right? So it's not an easy grief process when somebody is still alive going, hey, over there, like, come back. And you're like, no, I can't. So I do highly recommend, if you are escaping from those types of situations, please go no contact. It's like quitting cold turkey, an energy that can keep you otherwise addicted and suck you back in onto the loop. So it's not going to help your grief cycle if you're constantly sucked back in. So that's my last final warning. I'm sending you so much love, and the ultimate goal, of course, for all of us is peace. Peace in here, okay? Your heart is important. Your heart is so worthy and deserving of reciprocal energy, of kindness, of care, of compassion. If you're living in a constant state of crisis, that it's time to move on, okay? Energies are going to demand from you now. It's time to let go of those relationships that are causing you suffering, okay? And then you can begin to heal. But you cannot heal. You cannot heal as long as you are still in a toxic environment. Your body has the capacity to heal anything, but it needs to be in a healthy environment to be able to do that. We need to create a healthy environment for ourselves. And that's part of this ascension process. It's one of the main initiations of this awakening process, is removing yourself from toxic situations. I did in a video like a while back, good for you, years back, called The 4 Initiations of an Awakening. I think it's in the narcissistic abuse playlist. Please check that playlist out if you are getting out of one of these relationships, because there's a lot of useful videos in there to help you on your path. I'm sending you all my absolute love. Peace. You deserve peace. Peace in.